Why do we have such a hard time exploring wild ideas? Our brains are built to keep us safe. They don't want us to be original because when we become original, we're back into an unsafe environment. We don't know if what we're seeing and what we're facing is a snake, a branch, or a bag of money. The other thing that's happening is that wild ideas trigger our threat circuits. So we start getting activated into that flight, freeze, fold mode. It's activating that threat circuit, and we fast reject them before our evaluation. We are pre-wired for status quo because that keeps us safe. We have fear of social judgment. So when we're not norming to the group think, we all have our overactive inner critic, and this is our perfectionist self. Sometimes that can manifest into it feels too much. So it literally makes our brain hurt when we think about a wild idea. When we see that wild idea, we don't see the path. Therefore, if I can't see this path all the way to the end, our brain is pre-wired to think, oh, then that must be bad. So there's a rock there, I can't see around it, and I don't want to go explore that any further. And then the last one is when we think about our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, we are there as an observer, not to judge. We judge ourselves and we dismiss the wild idea or what we perceive as wild. And we say to ourselves, I could never do that. That's just crazy. That's dumb. And so something that could be a breakthrough or an innovation, we just set it aside because we don't want to express that crazy or wild idea out loud for that perception that other people might think what we're saying is crazy.
It's also interesting what emotions comes with it, because I remember one of our cohorts, she had an idea of just saying, I don't agree with this. And her wild idea was to stand up, hit the table and saying, I don't agree. To her was a wild idea because it expressed very strong reaction. So I think that's part of a wild idea, even if it may not just the idea, it's what is the emotion,
I think that's a
information
great
there.
example of expressing a strong emotion that people aren't expecting her to do that. Therefore, she immediately suppressed that idea. If I express this strong emotion, then people would think that's a crazy idea. When you're exploring a wild idea, we want you to think about this gear loop, grounding. You're grounding yourself to quiet that fear of looking foolish. Practice some sort of breathing. Breathe in, breathing out so that you can quiet that fear. You will not look foolish by expressing this idea that you have. Exploring, we want you to start thinking about how can I generate wild variants? It could be that you focus on a wild idea. You might have an idea, but that might spark something else that turns into be, wow, I just had a breakthrough and an innovation because I allowed my thoughts to wander. I allowed my thoughts and my thought about this particular wild idea. I didn't dismiss it. I just let it get bigger and bigger and bigger. In the attunement phase, this is where we're going to keep the variants or the things that we explored and we're going to tame them. And then the last step is we really want you focusing on what's one thing, not 10 things. What's the one thing that I can do that I can test